Open your refrigerator right now and take a good look inside. That humming box in your kitchen costs you money every single hour of every single day. It never stops running. It never stops drawing power. And the moment the electricity goes out, a storm, a blackout, a bill you couldn't pay, everything inside it begins to rot within hours. We've come to believe that this one machine is the only thing standing between us and spoiled, dangerous food. But that isn't true. It has never been true. Right now, today, there are families living high in the mountains who keep their food fresh: meat, vegetables, milk, grain, all of it not for a few days, but for an entire year. Through the longest, harshest winters on Earth, cut off from any store or any road, they never go hungry and they never get sick from their food. And here's the part that should stop you cold. They do it with no fridge, no freezer, no electricity, and almost no money at all. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how they do it. Method by method, step by step, 8 different ways the mountain families keep food for a year, every one of them something you can start using in your own home this very week. And stay with me right to the end, because the last method I'll show you is the most astonishing of all. It's a single food these mountain families make that doesn't last a week, or a month, or even a year. It lasts for years, for decades, some say. A food a mother can make, and her own child can still be eating as a grown adult. Most people have never heard of it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it is and how it's done. But everything builds to that, so let's start at the beginning, with why this matters more than you might think. Think for a moment about how fragile our modern way of eating really is. Every scrap of food in your home depends on 2 delicate threads: a constant supply of electricity and a constant supply from the store down the road. Snip either thread: bad weather, a power cut, hard times, a winter that traps you indoors for a week, and within 2 or 3 days, that humming refrigerator becomes nothing but a warm, dark box full of rotting food. We've handed over a skill that kept our ancestors alive for thousands of years and traded it for the convenience of a machine we don't even understand. And in doing it, we forgot something the mountain people never forgot: that keeping food fresh has almost nothing to do with electricity. It's about understanding nature and working with it instead of against it. The mountain folk don't fight the cold, the wind, the sun, or the seasons. They put every one of them to work. The cold of the deep earth, the dry wind off the peaks, the fierce mountain sun, the smoke of their own fire, even the plain salt of the earth. Each one becomes a tool to make food last and last. So if you've ever had the feeling that the old ways were quietly wiser than ours, that your grandparents knew things we've carelessly thrown away, then do me a favor and subscribe. And stay right here with me, because keeping this old wisdom alive before it's lost is exactly what this channel is for. Now, let's get into the methods. The first way these families keep their food is also the simplest, and it's one almost anyone can copy. They let the cold itself do the work, but they do it far more cleverly than you'd think. Now, you might be saying, well, of course it lasts. They live in the freezing mountains. The whole place is a natural freezer. But here's the thing. A wild, uncontrolled cold ruins food just as surely as heat does. It freezes things rock solid, splits them open, and turns them to mush the moment they thaw. The real skill is finding the one temperature food loves best: cold but steady, just above freezing and never changing. And the mountain families find that perfect temperature in the one place it always exists: underground. Beneath their stone homes and dug into the hillside beside them, they carve out small cellars and storerooms in the earth and the rock. Down there, deep below the surface, the burning summer sun never reaches, and neither does the killing frost of the winter night. The temperature barely moves all year round. It stays cool, dark, damp, and perfectly even a natural refrigerator that runs on absolutely nothing and never breaks down. Into that cool, dark room go the potatoes, the turnips, the radishes, the cabbages, the crocks of butter, the wheels of cheese, the jars of preserves, and they stay good for months. Some mountain families take it even further and build what's called a spring house, a little stone hut built right over a cold mountain stream, so the freezing running water keeps everything inside chilled all summer long, like a refrigerator powered by the river itself. Now here's your lesson to take home, and it costs you nothing. The coldest, most stable corner of your own home, a north-facing room, a cellar, an unheated garage, even a box buried in the shaded ground outside, is a free refrigerator that never sends you a single bill. Our ancestors knew exactly where the cold lived in their homes, and they used it. Most of us have completely forgotten it's even there. But cold alone isn't enough to carry a family through a whole year, and the second method is where this starts to get really clever. The second way is one of the oldest tricks known to humankind, and the mountain people have raised it into an art. They dry their food. Here's the simple truth that makes it work, and once you understand it, you'll never look at food the same way again. What makes food rot is water. The moisture trapped inside meat, inside vegetables, inside fruit, that's the thing mold and bacteria need to grow and multiply. Take the water out, and you take away the very thing that spoilage needs to live. No water, no rot. It's that simple. And the mountain families understand this in their bones. Up at high altitude, they have a secret weapon for it too, the air itself. The mountain air is thin, bone dry, and the wind never stops blowing. It's one of the finest natural food drying machines on the whole planet. So they take their meat and slice it into long, thin strips, the thinner the better, because thin dries faster before anything can spoil, and they hang it out in that cold, dry wind. Over days, the moisture pulls out of it, and it cures into a hard, dark, lightweight jerky that keeps for months without ever touching anything cold. They do the very same thing with vegetables and leafy greens, shredding them, threading them onto cords, spreading them on racks, and hanging them from the rafters until they're dry and leathery and nearly impossible to spoil. When the dead of winter comes and nothing grows, they just drop a handful into a pot of hot soup, and those dried vegetables drink up the water, soften, and come right back to life, full of flavor and goodness, as if it were summer again. And here's the part you need to hear. You do not need a mountain to do this. A warm, dry, airy spot in your home, a rack near a sunny window, your oven set to its lowest setting with the door cracked open. People dried food for thousands of years before anyone invented an electric machine to do it, and the principle hasn't changed one bit. Dry your own herbs, your own tomatoes, your own apples, and watch how long they last. But plain dried meat hanging in the open air has one weakness, and the third method is exactly how the mountain families fix it. The third way is salt, and salt may just be the single most powerful food preservative the old world ever discovered. It's hard for us to imagine now, but for most of human history, salt was so precious it was literally used as money. Wars were fought over it. It was worth its weight in gold. And the reason is exactly what these mountain families understand so well. Salt draws the water straight out of food, and it creates a place where the bacteria that cause rot simply cannot survive. So when a family has meat to keep, and meat is the hardest and most dangerous thing of all to preserve, they reach for the salt. They rub it deep into the surface. They bury the cuts in it completely. They layer the meat and the salt together in a crock or a wooden box, pressing it down, and they let the salt slowly, patiently pull every last drop of moisture out. Salted and then hung to dry, a piece of meat lasts not days, not weeks, but many long months more than enough to carry a family clear through the winter and into spring. This is the exact same method behind every cured ham hanging in an old farmhouse, every barrel of salt pork that crossed the oceans, every bit of salted fish that fed entire nations before refrigerators existed. It costs almost nothing. It needs no power whatsoever, and it's a skill our own great-grandparents thought of as ordinary as boiling a kettle. Today, most people have never salted a single piece of meat in their entire lives, a skill that kept humanity alive for 10,000 years, gone in 2 generations. But here's where the mountain families go, one step further than even the salt curers down in the lowlands ever did. They take that salted meat and they hand it over to the one thing that's always burning right in the middle of their home, and that brings us to the fourth method, and it's a beautiful one. The fourth way is smoke. Right in the heart of every mountain home burns a fire that almost never goes out all winter long, and these families discovered long ago that the smoke curling up off that fire is one of the finest food preservatives they have. So up above the hearth, in the rafters where the warm smoke gathers and lingers, they hang their salted meat, their fish, their cheese. And day after day, while the family cooks its meals and warms its hands, that slow, steady smoke does its quiet work. Because smoke does 2 wonderful things at the very same time. First, its gentle warmth dries the food even further, driving out the last of the moisture. And second, the smoke coats the food in natural compounds that keep bacteria and mold from ever taking hold. It's nature's own preservative, and it comes completely free with a fire you already have burning. Smoked meat forms a hard, dark, protective skin on the outside that seals all the goodness inside, and it takes on that deep, rich, savory flavor that we still happily pay a premium for in shops today. A whole side of meat, salted and then hung above the hearth in the autumn, will feed a family deep into the coldest months. And here's the genius of it, the part that captures this entire way of living. They aren't burning a single extra stick of wood to do this. The fire is already lit, it's already warming the house and cooking the food. The preservation is a free gift on top, costing them nothing at all, nothing wasted, everything doing 2 or 3 jobs at once. That's the mountain way. But meat and cheese aren't the only things a family has to get through the winter. What about all those green vegetables from the summer harvest? That's the 5th method, and it just might surprise you the most. The 5th way is fermenting, and I know that word might sound a little strange, or even a little unpleasant, but stay with me, because this is one of the most brilliant things the mountain family's ever figured out, and people all over the world are rushing to rediscover it right now. Here's the idea, and it's beautiful in its simplicity. Instead of fighting to stop their vegetables from changing, they learn to guide that change in a good direction. They take their cabbage, their leafy greens, their radishes, pack them down tight in a crock or a jar, usually with a bit of salt, press them under their own juices so the air can't reach them, and then they simply wait. And something close to magic happens. The good, helpful bacteria, the ones that are naturally there all along, wake up and take over, and they create an acidic environment so sour that the bad, rotting bacteria can't survive in it at all. The vegetables don't spoil, they transform. They turn tangy and sharp and full of flavor, and they keep for months and months and months with no cold and no power needed at all. The mountain families turn a summer's worth of green vegetables into food that carries them right through the barren, frozen winter, when nothing green can grow for 100 miles in any direction. And here's the part the old folk always knew, and modern science is only now catching up to. These fermented foods aren't just preserved. Many people are convinced they're actually better for you than the fresh vegetable ever was. Gentle on the stomach, easy to digest, and full of the kind of goodness that keeps a body strong. This is the very same family of methods behind sauerkraut, behind real pickles, behind so many of the foods our own grandparents kept in big crocks down in the pantry. It costs next to nothing, it needs no electricity, and you can start a jar of it on your own kitchen counter this very afternoon. But the harvest doesn't just bring leafy greens. It brings heavy roots and sacks of grain too, and the 6th method is how the mountain families keep those. The 6th way is storing the harvest right in the earth itself, burying and burrowing. When the potatoes and the root vegetables come in from the fields, the mountain families don't just dump them in a corner and watch them slowly rot, the way most of us would. They understand exactly what roots want, to be kept cool, dark, and just slightly damp, away from light and away from frost. So they bury them. They pack them into pits lined with straw. They layer them in boxes filled with dry sand or soil. They tuck them into the coolest corner of that underground cellar from the 1st method. And here's a clever detail most people miss. They keep each kind separated, and they keep certain fruits and vegetables well apart from each other, because some give off a gas as they age that makes the others spoil faster. Packed in sand or straw, protected from light and frost and from one another, those potatoes and turnips and radishes last the entire winter, pulled out fresh whenever they're needed. And the grain, the barley, and the wheat that are the very staff of life up there gets a special treatment too. They roast it. Now listen closely, because this is clever. Roasting the grain doesn't just give it a wonderful nutty flavor. It dries it out completely, and the heat kills off anything that might cause it to spoil or sprout. Roasted and then sealed away in dry containers, safe from moisture and from mice, that grain keeps for months, even years, always ready to be ground into fresh flour at a moment's notice. To a mountain family, a full grain store is the deepest security there is. It's the whole difference between facing the winter with calm confidence and facing it with fear. And speaking of security, there's still one more everyday food they have to keep, one they use every single day, and the 7th method solves it beautifully. The 7th way is fat, and in particular the way the mountain families preserve their butter. Now, we all know fresh butter goes bad. But these families get precious butter from the milk of their animals, and they use it in everything, in their tea, in their cooking, even to light their lamps. They need it to last through the long seasons when the animals give little or no milk at all. So they use two clever tricks. The first is to turn it into clarified butter. They gently heat the butter and skim away the milky solids and the water, and what's left behind is a pure golden fat that, sealed away from the air, keeps for a very, very long time without ever going rancid. The second trick is about that sealing, and it's a principle worth burning into your memory. If you can keep air away from a fatty food, you can keep it for a remarkably long time because it's the contact with air that turns fat rancid in the first place. So they pack their butter into containers, press it down hard to push the air out, smooth and seal the surface, and keep it cool and covered. Some mountain peoples even age their butter on purpose, sealing it away and burying it for special occasions, sometimes for years at a time. And here's the lesson for your own kitchen. And it's a powerful one. Fat is one of nature's greatest preservers, and keeping the air out is half the whole battle of making any food last. Our ancestors understood this so deeply that they would cook meat and then store it completely submerged in its own fat, sealed away from the air, and it would keep for months. We've forgotten that almost entirely. But there's one more method before the big one, and this seventh cousin of it is so strange and so clever you'll hardly believe it works. The eighth way uses the cold and the sun together, and it's a kind of natural magic. High in the mountains, the nights are bitterly freezing, but the days, under that fierce thin-air sun, can be bright and dry. And the mountain families learn to use both, one after the other, to do something incredible. They freeze-dry their food. Here's how it works. They take their potatoes or other foods and they leave them out in the killing cold of the night, where they freeze solid through and through. Then, in the day, under the strong sun and the dry wind, the ice inside doesn't melt into water, it vanishes straight into the air, leaving the food dry. Night after night it freezes. Day after day it dries out a little more. They press the moisture out with their feet and repeat it until what's left is a light, bone-dry, rock-hard little nugget of food that weighs almost nothing and that keeps not for months, but for years. Stored away, it becomes a famine reserve, an insurance against the worst the mountains can throw at them. When they need it, they just soak it in water and cook it, and it comes back to life. Think about that. These families worked out how to freeze dry food the exact same way expensive modern machines do it today, using nothing but the free cold of the night and the free sun of the day. It is one of the cleverest food tricks human beings have ever invented, and they've been quietly doing it for centuries. But now we come to the one I promised you at the very beginning, the most astonishing method of them all. Because there is one food these mountain families make that puts every other method to shame. It's a cheese, but not like any cheese you have ever eaten. It's made from the milk of their mountain animals, and instead of keeping it soft, they dry it and press it and harden it until it becomes almost as solid as a stone. This hard cheese is so completely dried out, so utterly free of the moisture that spoilage needs, that it doesn't last for weeks or for months or even for a single year. It lasts for years. For many, many years. There are pieces of this cheese that families keep and pass down across the generations. A mother can make a batch, and her own child can still be eating it as a fully grown adult. Let that truly sink in for a moment. In a world where we throw food in the bin because it's a day past a printed date on the label, these mountain families make a food with a shelf life measured in decades, using nothing in the world but milk, air, and patience. They eat it slowly, a hard little piece tucked into the cheek where it softens over hours, releasing a tiny, steady trickle of rich nourishment that carries a person through a long, hard day of work in the thin, cold mountain air. It's food, it's comfort, and above all, it's the ultimate insurance against hunger, a reserve that will quite simply never go bad in their lifetime. And it costs them nothing but the milk their animals already give and the knowledge handed down to them by their elders. That, right there, is the whole difference between their world and ours. We have machines, and our food lasts a few days. They have wisdom, and their food lasts a lifetime. So let's bring it all together, because when you step back and look at everything these mountain families do, you start to see something far bigger than a clever list of tricks. You see an entire way of living that we've very nearly lost. They never depend on a single fragile machine to keep their family fed. They have not one method, but 8, all working together at once. The steady cold of the earth, the dry mountain wind, the drawing power of salt, the smoke of their own fire, the quiet magic of fermenting, the shelter of the buried soil, the sealing power of fat, the freeze-drying gift of the night and the sun, and that astonishing stone-hard cheese that outlives the very hands that made it? Layer upon layer of security, every single one of them free, every single one of them powered by nothing but understanding. And if one method ever fails, the others hold the line. They can face the longest, cruelest winter on Earth, cut off entirely from the rest of the world, and know with complete and total certainty that their family will eat well until the spring. How many of us, with all our gleaming technology, can honestly say the same? And here's the part that moves me most of all. These are not rich people. By every measure we use today, they have almost nothing. And yet, when it comes to the single most important thing there is, feeding their family, keeping the people they love safe and nourished through the very hardest of times, they are richer and more secure than most of us will ever be. They hold a kind of knowledge that money can't buy and that no power cut can ever take away. They aren't at the mercy of a store or a power grid or a humming machine in the corner that could fail tomorrow. They are free. And that freedom doesn't come from having more. It comes from knowing more. And the truly wonderful thing, the hopeful thing, is that none of this knowledge is actually gone. It's just been set down and forgotten, waiting quietly for someone to pick it up again. Every single one of these methods still works today exactly as well as it works for them, because nature itself hasn't changed one bit. You can dry your own food, you can salt it, you can start a jar of something fermenting on your own counter tonight. You can find the cold, steady corner of your own home and finally put it to use. You can keep your family fed and just a little more free, the very same way the mountain people do it, the same way your own great-grandparents very likely did before all of it slipped away in a single rush generation. So that's my real hope for you today. Not just that you enjoyed hearing these old secrets, but that you'll actually try one. Start small. Pick the single method that spoke to you the most and bring it back to life in your own kitchen this week. Because every time just one of us remembers one of these old ways and puts it to use, the knowledge lives on a little longer and it doesn't slip away from the world for good. Now I would truly love to hear from you. Which of these did your own family use back in the day? Did your mother or your grandmother keep a root cellar down below the house? Did they salt the meat or smoke it in the autumn? Was there always a crock of something fermenting away in the corner of the pantry? Tell me about it down in the comments. These old memories are precious beyond words, and there's nothing I love more than reading them and knowing this wisdom is still alive and well in people like you. And if you'd like to keep learning the old mountain ways, how they heat their homes for almost nothing, how they grow food where nothing should grow, and so many more secrets the modern world threw away, then stay right here with me. There are so many more still to share. Until next time, take good care of yourself, take good care of the ones you love, and never, ever let the old wisdom be lost.